Welcome back to the Basic Bee podcast. I am so grateful that you're here, and I am also so grateful that I get to have this conversation with my friend, Jen Donlin. I've been working with her with tarot and Reiki and spinal energetics, and if that sounds like super out there to you, amazing. I want you to continue listening because that's the entire point of why we're going to have this conversation. What I am hoping to get into is a little bit of like what it's like to be a spiritual entrepreneur, as well as these different modalities, what they are and how they've really supported me in the last, couple months or something. So I will introduce you to Jen and then we'll actually bring her on. Jen Donlin is a tarot reader and mentor, Reiki Master, and Spinal Energetics Practitioner. Her mission is to guide people to heal from the inside out. Through the transformative practices of tarot and spinal energetics, Jen helps her clients deepen their understanding of self and release stored trauma and emotions in the body to come into energetic alignment. Inspired by the Fool's Journey in tarot, Jen guides her clients to connect with their internal world, transforming how they navigate and shape their external reality. My friend, it's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I can't wait to see where this conversation is going to go, because you and I always just have like the bestest and the wildest conversations, so we will see what happens.
Yes, allowing spirit to guide this.
Yes, for sure. I don't know if this will make the cut or not, but I'm going to start off with the question that I currently ask all of my podcast guests. There's no wrong answer. You can't mess this up. It's literally just however you feel about it. I know. So the question is, which do you believe is the most important for sales? SEO, storytelling, or social proof?
I think it's storytelling, if I'm being honest. Because when you ask that question, I immediately think of its authenticity. And if you can tell a story, whether it's your story or a client's story or like about how you even got here in an authentic way, then it draws people in and people feed off of your authentic energy and people trust you and will trust what you're trying to sell, whatever it is, more deeply if you are able to tell that story from an authentic place. So the word that came in was authenticity, I think trumps all of those, but storytelling within that authentic nature, I think, is the number one thing.
I really love that. And it's really interesting that you say authenticity because authenticity has popped up a lot on the podcast, as has intention. So I feel like that nestles in really nicely with the rest of the conversations that we've had.
Yeah. And it's interesting that it goes against what society tells us and teaches us. Like, I didn't go to business school. Like, I was a teacher. This is all new for me. But it's probably not something that they teach specifically how to be yourself in a business class, right? They don't tell you like how to be yourself to authentically sell what you're trying to sell. And I think that's one of the key things that I've discovered on my journey within business is like, the more I am myself, the more I sell.
Exactly. It's another theme that's come up. And that was like part of the inspiration for me even having this podcast is like, who are we? Why are we special? Why are we different? What makes us so unique? And like encouraging people to get back in touch with that. And, you know, not just for the listeners, but also for me, it's an opportunity. And then anyone who is a guest on here, it's been an opportunity too. So I couldn't agree more that we grow up and go through all these different experiences. And it's like, here's the box, fit inside of it. Whatever is unique about you, like, we're just going to toss that out. And actually, it's the complete opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's the unlearning, I like to call it.
It really is. I like that. Okay. So you mentioned being a teacher. I don't know really like any of your backstory. So how did you end up here?
Okay, so we'll go back a little bit. I started out as a special education teacher. Based on my astrology, you can kind of see that like I'm meant to help people at my core. What I'm supposed to do and what I feel called to do authentically is help people. And so I went to school to become a special ed teacher to help people who were like me, i.e. a kid in a special ed class. I have ADHD. I was diagnosed when I was 7. And so the goal was to kind of make my kids hate school less. That was like literally the goal of just like, I want them to hate school less than I hated school. Kind of was my first purpose of going. And I just fell in love with the kids and it was incredible, but also so draining at times. It was exactly what I wanted to do, which was help people. But then it also, during my awakening, woke me up to how the system is failing. Us, the kids, the teachers, all of it together. And so it became really difficult to be in. And obviously that phase of my life in helping the younger version of me, right, the childhood version of me came to a close. I started to wake up after and when I mean wake up, have my spiritual awakening after a pretty gnarly breakup. And I found myself drawn to tarot cards, and I started pulling for myself, and it lit my world up. I was like, holy crap, I'm pulling cards. It starts to happen. I'm seeing signs and synchronicities, all those things. But I was still a teacher. If I wanted to leave teaching, I needed to have something to kind of come in. I couldn't just be like, all right, quit teaching and I'll figure it out from here. I needed like a phase in, phase out plan.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I did. I started reading tarot online and started building my following on TikTok. And it started to take off. And as I began doing that, it obviously led me on my own journey, right? As I'm helping other people, reading tarot for them, helping them on their journey. It led me on my own journey, which then led me to Reiki. And then it led me to Spinal Energetics. And now here we are. And I have incorporated all three of those modalities into my business because they have helped me specifically on my journey. So I think my journey has been me discovering myself and helping other people discover themselves through the tools that I have used to help me discover myself.
I freaking love those.
Yeah.
I feel very similar. And so there's a lot of things that you and I have that overlap. And I swear every time we talk, it's just like, oh, that too. Oh, this other thing too.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go to school to be a teacher, which is really, really funny. Never ended up doing it because I could see how I would get frustrated by not being able to like do what I wanted to do. So I should have known early on that I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't immediately go for that. I went into massage therapy. And so I kind of have heard of these different things. And I actually took Reiki 1, which I totally forgot about until recently. I was like, oh yeah, that was one of the very first continuing education classes that I took. But I didn't really continue with it. It was like I took Reiki and then I discovered this thing called craniosacral therapy, which are kind of similar. And for anyone who's listening who's kind of in this world or you understand chiropractic and massage therapy, and we'll get into like the different things that you do. But I think of craniosacral therapy is to massage therapy what spinal energetics and even network spinal chiropractic are to chiropractic. So I know that you're not a chiropractor, but you know this, that I have the background of having gone to a network spinal chiropractor. And I feel like if you're listening and you've heard of network spinal chiropractic, it's very similar to spinal energetics. But maybe where we should go here is, could you tell us a little bit more about, I think you shared about tarot, and maybe we can go into like Reiki and spinal energetics and what they are and what they look like.
Yeah. So when I look at Reiki and spinal, it's two beautiful modalities, but they are very different and they have different purposes, but they pull on each other in the same way that you don't have to touch someone to help them heal. I think both of them, it's all about intention and it's all about sending energy. And so while they are similar, there are many differences. I would say Reiki is more of a passive experience where you get to just kind of receive and like enjoy. And while Reiki can also induce releases in different ways, it's more of a passive healing, where spinal energetics is more of an active healing. So if you were to look at the two, I would say one is more feminine, one is more masculine, if you were kind of looking at that. So spinal energetics works off of your energetic field, and it works with your chakra system as well as your energetic field. And one of the things that is pretty cool is that within our energetic field, we have layers. And so it works off of our physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and soul level. So I can find out what's happening inside your soul, inside your energetic field, based on where I'm activating from within your field. So if like you're going through something emotional, I might find that on the emotional field. And so it gives us a picture into what's happening internally so that we can release, let go, whatever's happening on the inside, to allow us to find alignment on the outside, if that makes sense. And so I know you've experienced spinal energetics, and I'd love to hear from your perspective as well, what it felt like for you to be worked on by me and what it feels like.
And here's the absolutely nutty thing is that Jen and I have never actually met in person. I've had 3 sessions with you, I think, at this point, and they've all been over Zoom. And having had that in-person experience, I was like, I wonder if I can actually have a similar type of experience just virtually. Yes, is the answer. But I definitely agree with how you explained that Reiki was more passive and spinal energetics is much more active. So when I hop on a session with Jen, I'm usually laying my bed and the camera is such that Jen can see all of me. And so I usually lay down on my stomach, and then Jen's, like she said, she's activating different things. So she's just like poking a little bit at like energy that she's noticing. And I end up like moving. Maybe it looks like a stretch. Maybe it looks like a yoga pose. Maybe it looks like, if you ever go watch Jen's videos, you'll see sometimes there's like these like waves that your spine can do. And I feel like I've felt that happen a couple of times, but also I'm like, I'm in the session and I'm not really aware of what's going on. It's just like I feel things. The neatest thing about the spinal work is that your very first piece of advice was like, if you feel like you need to move in a certain way or do a certain thing, just like trust that. So it's this ultimate test of trusting in yourself, which I think is so cool and one of the biggest benefits of doing this work virtually, because that has been a connection that I've been really working to reestablish over the last couple of years. So when you said that on the first call, I was like, oh yeah, I'm in the right spot. This is going to be good.
Yeah.
But we wrap up the sessions with Reiki. And so that's definitely much more passive, where I'm usually laying on my back and then you're doing whatever. And there have been some times where it has been more activating. The last session that I had with you, there was kind of like an intense thing that happened during the spinal portion of things. And so the Reiki actually really was like very calming. So yeah, I don't know where you want to go from there, but that's how it feels.
Yeah, no, and I think you worded it perfectly, especially with spinal working virtually. It's like this deep remembering and trust. It's like almost like you take away all your senses and I just have to listen to what my body's saying. And it's like, oh, okay, how much do I trust myself right now? Like I always tell my clients and you that like, there's going to be a point in time where you ask yourself, am I doing this right? Is she up at my head or is she at my toes? Like, I have no idea. Like, I could be doing something completely different or wrong, right? And it's truly trusting what your body's feeling. I like to call it like similar to how our stomach will growl and then we'll say, okay, like I'm hungry, let me go eat. Like that concept of listening to our body, it's the same exact thing as like, okay, my shoulder's starting to hurt. What would feel good? Let me roll it out, right? And sometimes we can be so disconnected from our body that it's really hard for clients to do that. And so it really gives you a container to practice that and then release and let go anything that starts to come up from the inside out kind of thing.
Okay, you get it. You know SEO is important, but no, you're not interested in learning another skill. Who has the time? But who are you supposed to trust with the task of getting SEO to work for you? Someone who won't ghost you mid-project or treat you like a dum-dum lollipop. Someone who actually wants to empower you and your team with all things SEO. Hi, yes, it's me, Brittany, and you are the person I created the SEO packet for. You're curious, you want to understand this thing better, but like only a little bit. You don't actually want to do the doing. This way, you get the key SEO stuff super fast, and you get support throughout and beyond the project. No more letting Google gift you the wrong SEO strategy. Time to put the right words in the right places and get found online by the right people. Find all the info you need below. No, it really has been like that. And I actually like wrote down some notes because I'm such a nerd, because I wanted to break down a little bit of what's happened in each session. So I know that with some healers, body workers, energy workers, like they get into session and they kind of zone out and they don't really remember the sessions. Do you feel like that's true for you when you're holding space for people?
When I'm the practitioner side? Yes, I would say there's definitely, you drop into a different brainwave state, especially when you're on the table. I do play off of your own energy. I can kind of feel when you're more connected and when you're out of it a little bit more. Like I can feel when maybe the person's more in their head, and I'll remind you, like, drop out of your head into your body. What is your body saying? So yeah, I would say you hit different brainwave states and you hit different flow. Like there are some sessions where if somebody's really dropped in, I'll start channeling messages and that'll come through. It'll be based on how the other person's reacting to the energy, how connected they are, how connected they are to their spirit guides, and it'll kind of help me play off of that. One way that I do spinal energetics virtually, or the way that the energy comes through to me to help me understand or know what to do, from a practitioner standpoint, it happens to me on my body. So if you are going through something like, what is going on with her knee? My knee is killing me right now. So that it happens on my body. So I had to kind of drop into a different headspace for me to know, okay, something's happening here. And then I'll draw your awareness there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. Do you remember sessions, or do you remember what happens?
Yes. So it's interesting. With spinal, I remember sessions a lot more. With tarot, I sometimes black out. And like if I'm doing a group session with tarot, I will sometimes be like, I have no idea what I said. I hope it sounded okay. Because
Was I even here?
really, like sometimes like, I hope it was okay. And I hope I was like emotionally responsive, because sometimes you drop into these channeling states and I'm like, oh, like that could have come off rude if I was just channeling, like, and I wasn't showing emotional expression on my face at times. So yeah, definitely I drop into different brainwave states, different energies. But I typically remember with spinal, tarot, sometimes it goes out the window.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
And then what about Reiki?
Reiki, when I'm in a virtual space, I also am tapped into the other person's energy. So I'll know if they are focused, relaxed, or not, because it'll show up within my body. So I'm a lot more present with those.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I remember a lot more during Reiki, spinal versus tarot, because I find that like I almost have to drop, similar to if you talk to someone who channels like for a living and is just a straight channel, they kind of have to put their ego and their self aside to allow the messages to come through. And that's kind of what happens during tarot. So I kind of allow somebody else to start speaking through me, where with spinal and Reiki, it's very much more in the body. And so I'm much more present within my own body as well.
That is so neat.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get to the whole like you feeling things, because that definitely came up big time in the third session. But the first session, I just jotted down like a couple of notes. So like I remember working big time with like father wound stuff, because that was also something that I had worked with, I think, 2 other people that week. Ray being one of them, and Ray's How I Found You. And I'll make sure that her episode is like below too, because that's a really interesting conversation. But so I remember working with the father wound. I remember I was going into like the first real time that I was launching and doing a pre-launch and all this kind of stuff for an offer that I had. And so I know we worked on things. It was a lot about, all of them kind of have the same through line of like expanding my capacity. And it wasn't just about releasing things, or like, I almost think of it, and maybe it's not the best way to phrase it, but for me, it feels like breaking a tie to an old story that is traumatic, that was hurtful, that was painful, that whatever, like impacted me in some way, shape, or form. And so I remember after that session going for a hike with my boyfriend, and he's 6'2", and he just like takes off. He's got a long stride. He's taller than me. Like he's like booking it. And I'm the one that's like, oh, look at the woodpecker and the chipmunk. And like, oh, this thing, like me and you with the signs and synchronicities are just like geeking out on that. And he's like, I want to get to the destination. I want to see the view. And I had typically felt so upset and hurt that he was like bolting. And I didn't really realize until that day why it was bothering me. And then I didn't notice that it wasn't bothering me until that day. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Because what came up in that story with like the whole father wound thing is there was an event where I didn't feel like I was looked after. And I learned this lesson as a tiny human that like, oh, I'm going to have to look out for myself. And not only that, it involved like crossing a few lanes of traffic. And so feeling this need to rush and go fast and not wanting to be left behind. And so we like totally just like, again, maybe I'm not explaining it right, but it felt like breaking a tie to that story and not letting it impact me. Before I go on, you want to say anything about that one?
I thought it was so powerful. And I remember that session, there was, I think I said something or you said something about your toe. That was where it was living. The pain or the issue was living in your like left toe or your right toe. I forget which one you said, but it kind of shows that we're able to find within our body where that story lives, where that wound happened, and then detach and remove and release the experience, because the story created an experience for you, and then it created a narrative that's living in you, and it's a recurring story that you're telling yourself. So as we revisit that story, right, we talked about it right before we went into the session, we allowed the emotion to come up, or the energetics around that experience to then be released and let go of, which then makes the story or the narrative less intense, or there's less emotional attachment to that story, which is a perfect example of why you're like, oh, he's walking ahead of me. Okay. Like, I'm not looking at that as the same little kid, right, who was viewing her dad who was walking far ahead of him and like wasn't looking after her. So I think it's a really powerful way of reprogramming that story, like you were saying.
Yeah, so that was a big one. And yeah, good memory, because it was the bottom of my right foot. I had a bee sting.
Yeah.
I used to see a couple of different acupuncturists, and I would always joke, like, I'm going to tell you everything that's happening and everything I'm feeling, because I'm sure that there's some kind of like story that's here. And sure enough, they would always find something. So I always joked, like, if there's pain in my pinky toe, I'm going to tell someone about it.
Which is good, which means it's you're deeply connected to your body. It's understanding because your body's constantly speaking to you. And we're typically go, go, go all day. Like, what can I do to get things done? And if we slowed down, our body's like saying a lot to us.
Yeah.
Like, it's saying a lot. And a lot of times we just brush off like, oh, that neck pain. I just slept on my neck wrong. It's like, actually, no, that's like some childhood trauma that's living there and that wants to be heard. And if we can slow down and give it the time and space to be released, it'll go away, as opposed to you getting the foam roller out and like all the stuff to try and like make it go away and hush that voice. We actually take the time to listen to the voice that's coming up in our body, and then it allows it to subside in a natural way.
That's a really good point you made, because when you were speaking a little bit earlier, I was thinking of how, so I used to do massage therapy and now I do copywriting. Weird transition, but here we are. So one thing that I was reflecting on recently about massage therapy is that I never felt like I was actually helping someone get to the root of what was going on. Because they would come back and they would see me, which I loved because I ended up having these amazing relationships with my clients. But I wanted them to ultimately feel better and feel like things were improved. And that's not to say that what I did wasn't helpful, wasn't supportive, but it didn't feel like that, like I'm talking about like breaking that tie to that story. So, you know, if you're listening to this and maybe you've been like looking for something like that and you haven't found it, as quote unquote weird as these things might sound, you know, they might be worth a try because maybe you found something that you never thought to look into.
100%. And I think like it makes sense. You want to try a physical solution for a physical problem, but many times it's actually a metaphysical reason for the physical problem. And the physical problem is a manifestation of the metaphysical issue or the emotional issue, right? And so a lot of times people struggle with looking at spinal energetics. It's like, well, how can you fix me if you're not touching me? Right. And it's like, what? How is this possible? And it's like, well, if I was touching you, right, with massage therapy, then it like makes more sense because I'm physically like adjusting the physical issue. But if we step out of the box and the box of our physical body and remember that like we don't stop where our physical body ends. We have that energetic field and we also go deeper, and there's like things happening in the cells of our body. Those molecules in our body hold emotion and tension and trauma. And it's not just that physical piece to things. And so it's a really cool and beautiful solution to give to people if they've been trying all of these physical solutions for a physical problem. And if you're listening and you've tried all of these things, right? Cupping and massage therapy and all this stuff, and it still hasn't gone away. It's probably emotional issue, trauma, or a metaphysical issue that's kind of going on.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. Okay, so that was the first session. And then the second session was interesting because I was in the middle of my launch. We were still, again, working on expanding my capacity. And that's to hold anything, to hold love, to hold support, to hold money. Like, it was just like, I want more. I want to like go to the next level, but what does that look like? And do I feel like I can actually hold that? So we were working on like this like feeling of being safe and being safe to create and being safe to be seen. And so we worked on this. And if I ever get this thing on YouTube, I am making a face because I went to go pick up my boyfriend and I drove my car into a little boulder. It did some damage on the front bumper, but the funny thing was, I think I messaged you and I was like, well, hit my car, because we were talking about, that's right. We were talking about like, there's this expansion and there's this like positive stuff. And then there's also like the potential that the complete opposite, this quote unquote negative stuff can happen too. But the funny thing was that it really felt like I expanded my capacity so much that I completely lost sense of where I was in space.
Like you literally expanded your nervous system capacity and your energetic capacity so much that you weren't aware of your spatial awareness in the most beautiful way. It was a sign.
I had no idea. Yeah. It was great, but it was also like, what just happened? So yeah, and I got to work on, you know, giving myself grace and not being upset at myself and just looking at it and being like, I don't know what the hell just happened, but like, at least I'm good. My car's drivable. Like, we're fine. Like, it's okay. So that was really just kind of a funny session. And then the third one, which I think it's now been like maybe 3.5 weeks ago, we did the first hour was tarot, and then we did an hour of spinal energetics. So typically we had been doing with spinal energetics, like you'll get on the call with Jen. She just chit chats with you to see what's going on. She may already have some like, you know, messages and just intuitively knowing how to connect the dots. And then you get into the session and then you wrap it up. Like I said, at the end, it's like Reiki and you're just kind of chill. And then if you want, you can chat with her, which I love. But so with this, we started with tarot and we were getting a lot of the messages with that. And then that helped us know where to go with the spinal energetic session. So I'll tell you about the session, but at the end of it, I was like, you didn't ask me for this, but like, if you're ever thinking of combining these two, I think it would be a really great kind of session because it felt really powerful. So now she has this session called Energy Unleashed.
Thanks to Brittany. She's amazing.
Oh, thanks. It was really cool because the tarot session really helped direct our attention and energy. And again, it was like with expanding capacity and what's next and how things are going to come in and that type of thing. Because it was like home, it was business, it was personal life. So it was all of these things. And I remember a lot of it just being like, you've done the work and now it's just time to sit back and receive. And I'm like, huh? What? Because my system just wants to go, 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 go. So after the session, I did end up getting a ton of calls. I was wrapping up my launch, but I was getting a ton of calls from clients and a lot of the stuff was one-to-one. So the group program that I launched is like a smaller, intimate community. It's perfect. It's great because I'm learning a lot and I'll be able to iterate on it. But it was very clear. It's like, go over here and keep doing the one-to-one stuff. And a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs were coming in. So people like Jen, like Ray, like Natalia, if you've listened to those podcast episodes. And so it was really cool. And I'm like, all right, fine. I get the message. Like, just go jump in the deep end and be like, you're doing SEO for spiritual entrepreneurs. So I'm going to definitely be embracing that within the next couple of days. I'll start putting that stuff out there. But the wildest thing is that Jen was talking about how she feels things as she's working with you. So we got to a certain point of the session and Jen's like, I'm feeling something in my solar plexus, my heart. It feels like, I don't know, it feels like a knife. It feels like I've been stabbed. And I'm like, yeah, so I've had this past life experience where I was killed. Someone stabbed me in the front and I remembered it being kind of in the heart space, but heart, solar plexus, same general area. So we actually worked on removing the energetic imprint of being stabbed, which was nuts.
It literally felt, I was like, what is happening there? Wow. And then I think I said something along the lines of sword or warrior or something like that, which triggered you to be like, wait, that's tied to a past life that I've had. And it's just so crazy how, like you said, the energetic imprint from past lives lives within us now. So spinal doesn't just work on this lifetime's energy. It works on past lifetime's energy and how it shows up for us now, which was just such a cool first time I pulled a sword out from a past life. So that was cool.
I'm so happy to be that person for you. This has just been my experience. And again, I'm only 3 sessions in, but I am curious, when other people are coming to you, are there things or moments or events that you can point to for why people come see you? Or do you know, or is it so varied?
Yeah. So people come to me for so many different reasons. I would say one of the main reasons why people come to me is they have gone outside of their window of tolerance, right? Something in their external world has pushed them outside of their window of tolerance, whether it is a family member, a relationship, you lost your job, whatever it is, it pushed you out of your window of tolerance. So you could be anxious, you could be nervous, you could be going through something big in your life. And you're like, I need the space or someone to hold space for me to release, move through this and let it go. So that's a really great time. When you are feeling or going through something, spinal will just dig deeper. It's almost like if the wound is already activated, it's being invited to be talked about. And let's dig in there. Let's open it up, clear it out, and get it moving. So if someone is outside of their window of tolerance, that's a great time for you to book a spinal energetic session. So you're feeling a lot and you need the space or the time to move through it. And a lot of times, especially the vision they're giving me right now is a busy mom. You have kids to worry about, your husband to worry about, your job to worry about. And you're like, I need time to feel this right now. Something's going on and I need time to feel this. It's the perfect time to book a spinal session. The other time to book a spinal session is if you're feeling pretty stagnant. A lot of times if I'm things aren't changing or moving, things aren't coming towards me, things aren't leaving, it's just what's happening? I need to be activated in some way. And this is more so my spiritual people, I would say, who are I want that thing that's going to help push me over the edge to really kind of the go-getter energy of I want to go through that death and rebirth because I know something good will come from that death and rebirth. The last piece is any physical pain. So if something starts happening in your lower back or your ankle or like you were saying, the bottom of your foot starts to hurt and you know something happened there. It's your body's way of communicating that there's something there that it wants to talk, be seen, and let go of.
Mm-hmm.
So just taking time to tune in with yourself. So if it's something emotional, physical, or you're like, I want my environment on the outside to start changing, it's the perfect thing to do. Last piece I want to add around that is I'm noticing that a lot of my clients are coming to me with a vision, with this idea of what they want to create in the world. But there is this issue of like, well, why isn't my body or my nervous system allowing me to do that? So like, for example, a lot of people start to wake up to their purpose and they're like, okay, I know I'm supposed to talk on stages like Tony Robbins, but like my nervous system is not ready to talk on stage like Tony Robbins. Like my energetic capacity is not ready to be doing that. But you have a calling and a knowing that you're supposed to do that. So what Spinal Energetics does is it allows you to expand that nervous system to be able to take on more, to be able to remember that like, okay, I'm safe. I did see a quote today that I think ties into this, which is like the thing you admire about other people, right? You admire Tony Robbins because he can hold space for lots of people. And it's not that Tony Robbins is any better than you. He's just better at being authentically himself. And so I think Spinal Energetics allows you to get to the root of the issue to allow your authenticity to shine, which is like the game changer. And I just got chills as I said that. It allows you to be more authentically you and release the conditioning and the patterning that we acquired over our lifetime that like takes you out of your authentic self. And so Spinal really just, if you have a vision or a calling or a thing that you want to do, but you're like, I get nervous when I do it. Like an old version of me talking on a podcast. No way. I was so scared and nervous. And like through this healing in Spinal Energetics, I've found my own power and come back into self. And like you were saying with you, your ability to be like, yeah, I have an offer and I'm ready to share it. And I'm ready like to step up to that level. You said you were starting to attract a new caliber of clients, right? And it's like, because you started to match their energetic vibration. It's like they weren't any better or worse than you. You just started to see yourself on that level.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we're here. We're more authentically ourselves. And so we get to share more because we're more authentic.
The other thing that I was thinking of as you were talking about those different things is like Spinal also lets you release whatever hurt that happened that made you feel like you needed to dim, to shrink yourself, because I know that's one thing that I feel like I've been like peeling those layers back, which has been really freeing. And also on the nervous thing, I've shared this with you. So again, if this video ever makes it out into the world, at this point in an interview, I'm typically red. I have these like, it looks like hives that just creep up like my chest and my neck into my face. And by working with Jen, that's one thing. I swear, if I could go back and meet Jen when I was 10 or meet somebody who does like what Jen does when I was 10, I would pay all the money in the world to go be able to do that, because it was one of the most embarrassing things. And what makes it even more fun is when like even my mom is like, you're turning red. And it's like, yeah, funny how like when you point that out, it doesn't actually help. It makes it worse. So if we could just pretend that nothing is abnormal over here, that'd be great.
Yeah. And it was just your body communicating to you and wanting to say like, I don't feel safe here, but like, whatever you were conditioned to feel or believe, it's like if I said I'm uncomfortable, somebody's going to get mad at me for being uncomfortable, or I'm a burden or a nuisance or whatever it is. And it's like, no, you're not. And I just want to give inner Brittany a hug.
I know. She will take it.
It's interesting how our body communicates to us how it's feeling, especially as children. I used to puke before birthday parties because I'd get so anxious about going, whether it was away from my parents or around a lot of people. It was like, I don't want to be there. And I didn't know how to voice my own needs, because at that time it was like, you just do what you're told. It was like, okay, birthday party, even though everyone thinks that's going to be great. For me, it was a little overwhelming.
No.
It was too much. So our body's communicating to us so much, and whatever coping mechanism you learned as a child, you carry it with you. And so it's just giving yourself the space and time to look back at those coping mechanisms, be like, I hear you. I see why you did that. We didn't want to go to the birthday party, or we didn't want to talk in front of people. And now we get to say no. Now we get to like say, that doesn't feel aligned with me and my body right now.
Yeah. I've got like a few more questions for you, but anything else? I feel like this is kind of like the experience of what these things can do.
If I were to give any advice to anyone who's interested in doing Spinal Energetics, you're going to go to my page. I invite you to. You're going to see some crazy shit happening. It's going to look like an exorcism's happening on the table. And I promise you it's not, but it will look like that. And that is many times I'm posting myself. I like to share my experience with Spinal. But not every session looks like that. Let go of what you think it's supposed to look like. There is no wrong or right way to express, move, or release energy and tension. And so don't allow the big provocative experience that I have to catch your attention deter you away from going in and going deep and allowing that to happen. If you are looking for something like that and you are someone who has like done some somatic healing, but you want to go an even deeper level, I just invite you to drop in and allow yourself the space to really let go. You get out of the session what you are willing to look at. And so it's like, if I'm allowing myself to drop deeper and deeper, I will allow myself to release more and more. And so, just don't allow the craziness on the page to deter you from trying it out. It is for everyone. Truly, this work is for everyone.
It really is. So obviously by working with you, it's helped me personally and professionally. And that's one thing that I definitely wanted to hit on. But it's also, I'm so curious because we're starting to work a little bit with SEO now too, where it's like me helping you. And so I'm curious of like the business and the marketing side of things for you.
Yeah.
One thing I definitely want to encourage you listening to go check out is the reels that Jen does where you're doing the tarot readings because when Ray mentioned you, I think that's what initially started happening. I followed you and then these like random quote unquote readings would start popping up in my feed. And it got to the point where I'm like, these are so on point. I'm slightly creeped out. Am I just seeing all of her reels as they come up? And no, I went back to her page and there would be like, I don't know, I think you upload like a few readings at a time.
Yep.
And so I would go back and I was like, oh, I only saw this one. I didn't see these other ones. I didn't see that one. I only saw. So whatever is popping up as you start to follow Jen, yes, it feels creepy. It's just wild how that works. And I don't know, I'm assuming it's like the intention that's behind all of that as you're filming things. But how did you begin to know to start trying that or doing the reels that were like that?
Like reading on TikTok, like or our tarot. So I'm not going to lie. I find that my journey is me helping other people with the things that helped me. Right. So I started my journey and started tarot because I found the tarot readings on TikTok. So I was in the middle of that breakup and I was like, the only thing that was making me feel better, the only thing that was giving me hope was literally seeing these tarot readings pop up on my screen. And I was like, wait, but I can do this. Like, I think I'm pretty intuitive. I could probably do this. And so I ordered my first tarot deck. And then for, I want to say about 6 months, I was just reading for myself and friends and anyone who would listen. Like literally anyone. I was like, can I give you a tarot reading? I was like a toddler trying to show everyone my new cool skill or something like that. And I had no idea what I was doing. No clue. I was just playing with the cards and I'd read every single day for myself. And there was a learning curve that I was going through where I was like, I was also pulling cards and asking, is my ex going to come back? And like every day I was like, yep, they're coming back. They're coming back. No, they weren't coming back. They were not. So I was reading for myself. And then I would say after about 6 months, I was like, I feel like I'm being called for something more. I'm meant to use this in another way and to help other people. And then I started to pull on and record myself doing it. And I commend the other readers who did this before me, who helped me on my journey, right? Like I had a mentor and I also have been following Brittany Bento. She has been like a huge part of my journey as well. Like her videos have helped me. And my, like, just because I'm a tarot reader doesn't mean I don't need my own readings kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's such a helpful thing. And so what I give out, I also get back from other readers. And so I would say that's my own experience is what pulled me in and how helpful they were for me. So I knew it was like, okay, they helped me. They're going to help somebody else kind of thing. Is that's what pulled me into posting.
I still can't get over it where I'll just like, I'll see whatever video pops up and it's like, this is creepy.
So I will say I always set the intention to like do readings for people who need them. I set the intention that this reading is for one of my followers. So the people who are going to follow it receive the reading. Also, I find that it's a lot of times what I'm going through is something that my clients are going through or my followers are going through. I also find that like if people are interacting with me, like, or in my energetic field, that means like a reading might be for you. It's like if we talked 2 days ago, you might get a reading 3 days later kind of thing. So I find that like the more energy exchange that I do with people, then the messages align. And it's so funny. You'll know a message is for you first and foremost by the knowing. You're like, I don't know, she said something and it's like, wow, okay, that hits. It's on point. I was just doing something or it resonates on a certain level. And to take it a level further, if you see the numbers on the screen, Spirit will make you know a reading is for you. It's like 111 and you see like it's literally 111 on the time as you're watching that video, or there's 111 likes or whatever it is. And spirit will let you know when a reading is for you specifically, like they really want to hit it home. But there's always an internal knowing if a reading is for you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'll make sure that we have links and stuff, but do you have any like tarot decks or books that come to mind that you like recommending?
Yes, I do have. It's a yellow book on Amazon. I think it's literally called like the Guided Tarot. I'll send you the link, and it has every single meaning, upright and reverse, love, money, and general reading meaning for every single card in order. It gives you different spreads. I don't do tarot spreads. It doesn't support my ADHD brain. My ADHD brain wants to pull in just like kind of like lucid or a stream of consciousness kind of reading. But it gives you so much information. And so that's what I started with. I would do a reading for myself every day. And so like, okay, I got the world today and strength card. So let me learn those two. And then maybe I'd pull 2 days later and it's like, oh, I got the world and strength again. I remember I got those 2 days ago. And I remember world is completion and strength is strength. That one's pretty straightforward. So then just you practice and then the cards build on one another. And then you start to tell a story with them. If anybody who's listening and is looking for wanting to learn tarot, I just started launching a mentorship where I will mentor you in tarot and help you learn all the cards, how to do tarot readings for yourself, how to do them for others. And I help you build your TikTok or Instagram platform with readings. And so it's a pretty powerful combo of stuff. And so if you're interested, happy to connect.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we link that for sure. Okay, as we wrap up, I know we went over normal time, but this is so good. Is there anything that you wish people knew about being a spiritual entrepreneur? Because I know that you came to this from your teacher background. I had my massage therapy background. So it's not always like super straightforward and like, oh yeah, you should do this, or this could be an income path for you.
Mm-hmm. I would say the path is constantly evolving. Just because something works at first, it was meant to work for a little bit, and it's also meant to crumble and open you up for something bigger moving forward, if that makes sense. Because I'm finding within my business, I started doing one thing and it led me to the next thing, which then led me to the next thing. And it's like, don't expect it to look the same as what your original vision was of like what it's supposed to look like. So like let go of that expectation of what it's supposed to look like, but come back to the why. Why are you doing this? I'm doing this to help people. I'm doing this to heal. I'm doing this to help them transform. And so as long as you can tie it back to that main goal, that main why, and allow and let go of like the expectation of what you think it's supposed to look like, it'll open up in such an incredible way and a more powerful way than you could have ever imagined. Like I'm starting to move into like the retreat space, and I would have never imagined that I'd be doing that when I started like just doing tarot, you know? So like allowing the business to evolve just like you evolve and really leaning into the energetics behind it, because your business is an extension of you. So as you evolve, the business will, and it will level up as you move forward on your journey.
That's a great message.
Yeah.
I love that. Any other final thoughts as we wrap up? Or
no, this has been amazing. And I want to first say thank you for having me on here. I'm so glad we connected in this like soul connection. So I know that whoever's listening to this, if it feels aligned, we will connect. And I'm so glad that me and Brittany were able to connect. And I'd love to offer the listeners use code POD25 to get 25% off of my group virtual Spinal Energetics sessions. So I'm going to start offering that in January. So I'll be doing bi-weekly group Spinal Energetics sessions virtually, which you can hop on. And so I'd love to see you there. If this sounds like something you'd like to dip your toe into, I would love to connect.
I cannot wait for you to host those.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. I remember when you were doing the poll on Instagram and people were so excited for those. And I remember messaging you and I was like, I can't believe they're saying this, but this is so exciting.
I was surprised too, but it shows that like as provocative as Spinal Energetics is and how cool it is, people are like, I want it, but I don't know if I want it. And so it's just, you need to extend the rope to pull people in, and people want to grab on, and people want to try it out. So
yeah,
going to give them the space to unwind and release trauma.
Gosh, we all need that. I have always been the kind of person that's like, I'll go be the guinea pig and then I'll come back and tell people what it was like. And I did that a lot, especially with the massage practice, where I would go try acupuncture. I'd go try some other kind of massage modality, and then I'd come back and tell my clients about it. And I was very easily able to say like, oh yeah, knowing you and, preferences and things that you're comfortable with and things you're not comfortable with, this person would be better than that person, or this type of experience would be better than that type of experience. But I love jumping in and just like going and seeing what it's all about. So also too, definitely go follow Jen for sure, for sure, for sure. And then if you have any questions about like my experience, I mean, I feel like I kind of only scratched the surface, but feel free to message Jen, message me. Like we're both pretty much open books. Thank you so much for being here. And for everyone, I will catch you next time. Hold up. Why are we talking about blogs coming back? They never went anywhere. Now that we've got that cleared up, a strategy that all business owners need to be implementing with their blogs is, no surprise to anyone, SEO. Because blogs that are optimized for SEO bring in that warm to hot traffic to your site, build your authority in a sustainable way, and increase conversions much more easily. Where I see entrepreneurs getting tripped up when they even hear the word blog is that they don't know what to post, don't know how frequently to post, and don't know how long the blog posts should even be. So I'm clearing all of that up with my 2-part blogging workshop for business owners in January. It even includes my darn near world famous blogging email course. Check out the deets and take a peek at the additional support options at the link below.